Nini everyone, Zabora here. So before we get started on our next lesson, I do want to apologize. I kept saying soapstone. I don't know why I had or sandstone in the last video and I meant soapstone. I don't know why I kept saying sandstone. I kind of had that on the brain. I even said sandstone in my reply to Robert when he asked me about the question, the blind bard. So I apologize. I meant soapstone. Don't use soapstone for these things, these mortar and pestles. You want to use something much harder. You don't want to use sandstone either. Sandstone's pretty soft. The Egyptians cut it with copper tools and sand. So, yeah, that's first. Now, we're going to be moving on to our next lesson, but first I'm going to give like a little mini lesson. This one here is going to be on the use of psalms and hoodoo, because I know that not all of you come here for the Egyptian stuff. Some of you come here for the hoodoo stuff. So I kind of want to give like a comprehensive overview of hoodoo, even if I don't use the psalms. So using scripture and spell work, which is what the psalms are, is pretty much as old as scripture is. So a lot of Muslim practitioners who, in the early ages of their religion, would inscribe talismans or discs with scripture, and then they claim to have originated the practice. But these, of course, we know is not true, because they followed a very similar format to that of the Jewish scriptures. So this is part of the practical Kabbalah implements. Like, there's a spiritual side of Kabbalah and then there's the practical side of Kabbalah, and they're not separate, they're interwoven. And at least it's from my understanding, what I've been told. I've talked to Azrael a little bit on this, and from my understanding that's what it was. But I'm not an expert. Go ask him. I will leave a link to his channel down below. So the spiritual side of the Kabbalah kind of deals more with like the entities, like angels and demons and heaven and all that, whereas the practical side deals more with making talismans, doing the spell work and stuff. So I hope that kind of makes sense. So there is a book that you can get if you are truly interested in using the Psalms and spell work. It is, I'm gonna fucking butcher this, Shimerish Telim, which translates to On the Use of Psalms. And it's basically a book on using psalms in magic and how to make amulets and things like that. Now, this book was widely translated and distributed amongst hoodoo practitioners by Jewish candle shop owners and supply chains and stuff like that. It was originally banned by St. Thomas Aquinas from the Catholic Church in Christianity in general, because he got freaked out that people were using strange words and stuff like that. There was a little bit of an argument in that regards, and he kind of revisited the idea of it, and eventually it became talismans are all right, just so long as they're not using those strange words, which is kind of practical. I mean, how many times have you heard from other witches, don't use something if you don't know what it means. Don't recite stuff in other languages if you don't know what it's saying. So it's a little bit of practical advice, but he also didn't want any kind of mentioning of demons, Lilith being a popular demon that was implemented for divorce, because apparently she gave, like, bills of divorce, which, again, being Adam's first wife, kind of makes sense. So, eventually the sacred texts and stuff were allowed to be put on talismans and used by Christian mages and whatnot. So it wasn't until like the late 1800s, early 1900s that the book On the Use of Psalms was marketed to hoodoo doctors by the Jewish order houses. And these are basically mail order catalogs that you would find in use today. That's basically what it was. They'd put an advertisement out, you'd send in the money, and check what box you want to, order. You find them in the back of like Llewellyn books and whatnot. So they were like first mentioned, these Jewish order houses were first mentioned in 1936 when Henry Hyatt was interviewing hoodoos, and some had mentioned that they were using the Jewish mail order houses for some of their supplies. This was then confirmed in 1962 with Roy Johnson's biography of Jim Jordan, who was a famous root doctor from rural North Carolina. Jordan's sons recounted to Johnson tales of their father first gathering herbs in the woods, but then by the 1940s he was using packaged herbs in the books from Baltimore, which is where the Marcus Minx Cloverhorn Company resides. So that's it on the use of Psalms, just because I don't fucking use Psalms. I hate the Bible. I hate everything about the Bible. Whether or not it contains magic is irrelevant. That thing is a piece of trash, in my opinion. But on the use of sacred scriptures, for those of you who are interested in the Egyptian religion, I cannot recommend this book enough. This is Celebrating the Egyptian Gods by Sharon Laborde. Okay, that's what it looks like. And she does have hymns and stuff in here. Chants. This one is for Khonsu, the child. So, I will be using some of these when we go over the deities. See, there's one for Mut. So, I totally wanted just kind of to give you that history lesson for the hoodoo purpose, but also it does kind of tie in to what I do as a witch. I just don't use the Psalms, although I do use sacred scripture. Most of mine come from this book, although I do have friends like Martin who write beautiful incantations and chants and titles and poems and stuff to the Nechero, and I really love his work. So I do occasionally use those that he posts as well. Up there I've got my letters from, I guess they're the newsletters, from the temple, the Reformed Temple of Tutankhamun, which is the order that I am part of, and there are a few poems and chants and stuff that Tut issues. I think it's quarterly that we get the newsletter. So I'm all for using sacred scriptures. You know, when I did the cleansing bath ritual, I gave you a chant that you can say. That's something that you can also put on a petition paper if you're looking to make like a mojo or a protection implement or something like that. You can reduce it down into a sigil. You can carve it onto candles for protection, you know, whatever else. I gave another one when we did the Yinapu video, Anubis. That's a chant that you can use associated with him for the sacred scripture part. So the only thing else that I have to say is that we have a tie between Amun and Iset, Isis. I kind of prefer Aset to Iset. I know Tut uses Iset, but if you look at the wording for Osir's name, it starts with an eyeball. And Isis's name, the original Kemetic hieroglyph, also starts with an eyeball. So for me, that's the same sound that's being implemented. So if it's Aset, it's also Osir. Just my opinion. Or if it's Osir, it's also Aset. So that's just my opinion. Please, down below, tiebreaker. Do you want Amun or do you want Aset? Amun-Ra or Isis? Let me know. Give a thumbs up to the one you vote for. Comment down below, yeah, do this one. Whatever you want to do. Just let me know so we can get a little bit of a tiebreaker. If not, I'll do both of them. They'll just be back to back or whatever. So, that's it for tonight, guys. Synapte.